What's happening, guys? It's Jeremy Blanton, and today I want to discuss some things you're going to have to let go of if you're thinking about moving to Myrtle Beach. I moved here back in 1998 from Reading, Pennsylvania, and when we moved down to this area, we didn't realize how much we were going to have to actually give up to live here at the beach. And so I figured it was probably time, after living here close to 30 years now, to take some time and discuss some of the big things we had to give up, ideas, things that we were used to and loved living up in the north, to make the move here to South Carolina. So let's jump into this list and let's discuss some of the things you might have to give up if you're thinking of Myrtle Beach becoming your next home. So the first thing on the list that we have to discuss is giving up that big yard. We lived in Pennsylvania where we had a rather large, sizable yard that our house sat on. And, a lot of people that are moving here from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, they're used to living on maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe 8 acres of land and not touching their neighbors. And one of the things they say when they come down here is they see, Jeremy, all these neighborhoods are so close. The lots are so small. Why are the houses on such tiny lots? I need something with acreage. And well, guys, here's the reality to this. Yes, most of your developments down here, most of the homes in Horry and Georgetown County are going to be on something with under half an acre of land. Now, one of the reasons that this takes place is that literally the ground down here is so expensive. When you get close to the coast, land is going to just be significantly more expensive. As I talk about in a lot of my videos, the closer we get to the big blue ocean, the higher the price of the home becomes. The exact same home can be built in several different parts of the beach, but the one that is close to the ocean might be an easy $50,000 to $75,000 more just because of its location. So you want to take into consideration when you're buying a house, if you want to get something with that budget friendly, we're more than likely going to have to give up some land. Now, the other part to it is this. A lot of people who are moving here are coming from places where maybe people just aren't the most friendliest to live around. One of the things that we talk about down here in the South is Southern hospitality. It's one of the reasons why people love visiting here. They go, oh, it's so nice that everyone waves hello and smiles at you when you're going down the street, and they say good evening and hold doors for you and do all these friendly, nice things for you. But when you're someone like myself who came from the Northeast, where you didn't talk to people, you didn't look at them or smile, you just went straight ahead. Sometimes people may not say hello, but instead they might flick you off or do something like that. Those are the kinds of things that people are used to. But down here with Southern hospitality, people are just simply friendlier. They're nicer to each other. We get along. We like having people nearby. And so at the end of the day, homes here in our area are going to be on much smaller yard lots. I remember one of my clients who moved here a couple years back from New Jersey. They had a house that was on about 6 to 7 acres. And when they were coming down here, they said, Jeremy, I can't have anything less than an acre of land. And I want to be within 10 minutes to the beach. And I asked them, I was like, well, what is your budget? And at the time, back before the boom really happened, they said, well, I want to be $300,000 or less. And guys, it just wasn't simply possible even back then. Nowadays, finding something with an acre within 10 minutes of the ocean is probably going to cost you well north of $1 million in just about any parts of the county that you're looking. Here's the thing. Living at the beach is a trade-off. We're trading off having the acres of land and privacy for access to ocean and coastline. You're trading off having to do days worth of yard work and landscaping to be able to spend time sitting on the beach. So having that yard that you can get out, cut, mow, clean up everything and be done in 30 minutes to an hour once a week versus spending a whole day is something that you're going to want to do. That gives you more time to go down to the beach or hit up the water and go out on a boat or, hit a golf course and try to hit the golf balls. I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy playing sometimes, and that's where we spend our time on beautiful manicured lawns. We don't want to have to spend the time doing it ourselves. Find other places to do it. The second thing that you need to take into consideration if you're thinking about moving to this area is that there is a very good possibility you're going to be buying a home in some sort of homeowners association. Most of the subdivisions in our area, most of the communities are going to be some sort of a homeowners association. Now, I know there's some of you watching this right now going, Jeremy, I am not living in a place where somebody's going to tell me what I can and can't do. And you're thinking of the horror stories that we've seen and heard from places down in Florida where an HOA was not run well, things happened, there's no money left, there's a big special assessment that's put in place, all of these kind of nightmare stories that you've seen and heard. But here in in our area, most of your homeowners associations are fairly minimal if you're looking at a single family home. For the most part, I would say if it's a single family home and it has some sort of a community center or a pool, you can expect your fees to be probably around $85 to $120, maybe $150 a month for that use of amenities. If it doesn't have the community center or pool or those types of things, more than likely the HOA fee is probably going to be $45 to $75 a month. And with that, you're going to get a lot of stuff though included. Things like streetlights are going to be available in the neighborhood. You're most of the time going to get things included like weekly trash pickup, taking care of maintenance of the entrances and around the ponds and, berms and all that kind of stuff that might be in the development. That's all going to be included in that HOA fee. Now, I've talked about it a bunch in many, many videos of the pros and cons of living in an HOA community, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going back through that now. If you want to learn about it, click on this video here. You can watch it and see. But I will say this. What I have seen after many, many years of living here and selling hundreds and hundreds of homes is that communities where there is some sort of an HOA and there's some sort of amenities like a community pool, lazy river center, fitness center, all that kind of stuff, most of the time, those HOA communities are going to have a much higher value and appreciation than a community that does not. So don't be so ready to poop on the whole idea of a homeowners association. They're really not that bad. Now, what they might do is they might regulate that you can't paint your house the color purple if you want to. They might regulate that you can't have a shed of whatever you want in the backyard of your house. They might say you can or can't put a private pool in your backyard. So what most people think of when they're going to an HOA is that they're giving up things. They're giving up their freedoms. They're giving up the ability to park an RV in their front yard. They're giving up the ability to let the trash cans sit out all day long. They're giving up the ability to cut the grass whenever they feel like it, not when it really needs to be done. But the reality is while you're giving up those things, what you are getting is you're getting maintained entrances. You're getting beautiful amenities that you get to use. You're getting all types of other luxury things included. My development, I've talked about this before, my HOA includes in it my basic cable and high-speed internet. I pay about $110 a month and get internet, cable, trash service, pools, fitness center, and also a clubhouse that I get to use all for that $110 a month. I don't think it's that bad of a deal. So it's really not about our HOAs good or bad. It's that it's a part of coastal living here in the Myrtle Beach area. So hopefully that's something you can deal with. Now, if you say, hey, you know what? I can't do an HOA. I'm not having someone tell me what we can and can't do. There are still options in our area. We're just more than likely going to have to look either farther out or take a higher budget and go to an area over inside Myrtle Beach city limits where you're in the avenues where it's going to be some of your older homes close to the ocean, but also get your checkbook ready because those homes are probably going to be $600,000 to $1 million plus in price. All right, guys, the third thing that you're probably going to have to give up if you're going to move to the beach is the idea of having 4 seasons. If you're someone who loves the 4 seasons of the year, love having that fall time when the leaves are changing color and falling and how beautiful it looks outside, and the winter time where you can get out on the ponds that are frozen over to ice and playing in the snow and all those things, more than likely Myrtle Beach isn't going to be the place for you to move. Well, the reality is we don't really have cold enough weather here for those things to take place. We might see a snowstorm once every couple of years show up here in the area. We've actually been a little rare the last few years. We've actually had 2 snowstorms 2 years in a row where our children were actually home from school for 2 to 3 days because the weather and roads were just not favorable. But as a whole, most of the time, we might see some flurries once or twice throughout the wintertime, and that's about it. I've never seen any of the ponds frozen over where you could go out and walk on them because most of the time, the weather might get down in the high 20s or low 30s at nighttime, but during the day, it's going right back up into the 40s and 50s most days of the year. The other part of this is that, we're going to have hot here. It's going to be very, very hot. We still do have kind of 3 to 4 seasons a year here, but we don't really have that just bitter, miserable cold. I had good friends that moved here from Michigan, and they used to live in Myrtle Beach many years ago and moved to Michigan Michigan for a missionary job and then came back after a few years. And what they shared is that when they lived in Michigan for a while, that during the winter months, it's just gray, it's dreary, it's drab. You can't go outside. There's nothing to do. And what they found is that the mentality of most people during those months of the year really starts to get low because they're not getting the vitamin D from the sunshine outside. They're not able to see the beautiful blue skies and sunshine throughout the day. And that stuff really does start to mess with your mentality and overall well-being if it happens for an extended period of time. So while you'll have to deal with the extreme heat during the summertime, and I just had a client who he was moving here and he said, I can't move, it's too hot. I should just probably say this right now, guys. Living in South Carolina during the summertime can be brutally, miserably hot. Temperatures can be into the mid 90s with the high humidity that we have. Easily it can push up into the 105, 110 range most times throughout the summer. We had this year a very, very dry March, April, May, June. July even, where we didn't see a lot of rain. Towards the second half of July, we started to get some rain, and here we are now into August where we're starting to see rain again. But during that stretch where we had this almost severe drought taking place, we had many, many days where the temperatures were hitting in the mid to high 90s, but with that high humidity that's in the air, it made it feel like 117 degrees. So if you're someone who says, I got to be outside in the beautiful sun all summer long, and I'm used to being out from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, you're more than likely not going to want to move to Myrtle Beach, because during the summertime, during those high heat times of the day, you want to be inside. So when we're doing work, my wife and I, we had some chores around the house we needed to do last week. We got up in the morning early. We were outside by 8 a.m. working on the projects we needed to do so that we were done by 9:30 to 10 o'clock and able to come back inside to the air conditioning during that high heat time of the day. That's what most people do. Or they do the other end of it where they're going out after 5:30 at night to start their projects, working on it from 5:30 to 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock at night, and doing it when the sun is not at its highest in our area. This is what people who live in our area do. That's how we can adjust and deal with the extreme heat that we have in our area. But if you're someone who's moving here, you definitely want to take that stuff into consideration before you get yourself ready to move and buy a house. So here's some things that you're probably going to have to give up if you're thinking about it when it comes to weather. You're going to have to give up snow days. You're going to have to give up ice skating. You're going to have to give up having fun out in the middle of the day in the summer. But what are you trading that off for? You're trading it off for being able to play golf in the middle of January. You're being able to trade it off from being able to go down to the beach in the middle of June and March. And one of the other things you're really giving up is you're giving up the idea and thought of a white Christmas for the ability to wear shorts in the middle of Christmas. Personally, I think it's kind of cool. I like being able to wear shorts on Christmas Day. So these are some things you need to take into consideration when it comes to weather. All right, so the fourth thing that you're going to have to give up if you're thinking about moving to Myrtle Beach is the idea of having a basement. As someone who came from the Northeast down here, I was used to having a basement. In our house, it was finished. We had downstairs actually my dad's music studio where he would teach music lessons. And as my grandmother got up in age old and became much older, she actually moved in and lived in our fully furnished basement of the house. A lot of people who have homes in the Northeast, that's where they store all their stuff. All the Christmas decorations are stored downstairs. One of our friends and good client, he actually does a lot of stuff with eBay, and he has his entire eBay shop set up in his basement. Well, guys, if you're thinking about moving to the Myrtle Beach area, one of the things you need to realize right away is the basements are gone. We don't have them here. Now, you may be saying, well, why don't houses have them? Well, it's kind of a simple, easy thing. First, our soil here is very sandy. It's very porous. So moisture, it just runs through it very quick and easy. But the other part, which is even more important, is that our water table is very low. We're close to sea level. Well, we have the ocean right here. So at the ocean, it's basically sea level. But I live over in the Carolina forest area, so I'm about 10, 15 minutes from the ocean. And if I pull out my phone and look at it right now, you'll see that I am basically 30 to 40 feet above sea level here at my office right now where I'm shooting this video. most of Horry County sits in what they call the lowlands, meaning it's not very high elevation. My wife and I, we took a trip back last year. We went up to the Biltmore Estate, and it was so funny how as we started driving along and started going up the hill, our ears were popping over and over. Most of the area here along coastal South Carolina is pretty flat, pretty low lying. When we go to Georgia to visit family, we don't really hit any hills or any mountains or anything until we about get to Columbia, South Carolina. Once we reach that area, that's when we start to see the elevation going up and down on the roads. So here in our area, the ground's very flat. With that being the case, the water table is pretty high. So if we were to put that basement into our house, what it would basically do is turn into an in-ground swimming pool probably within a few weeks of it being dug and put into the ground. So most houses here, you're not going to find it. So definitely something you want to consider before moving here. What this is going to help you to do, and what most people love about moving to this area, is that if I were to purchase a house here in Myrtle Beach, it means that I have to clean out things. I have to get rid of all of the excess things and purge all of the things that I don't really use anymore and get rid of them because I don't have space to store them. Now, yes, the homes here will have attics where you can stick things in as well, but one of the things that I would just caution you is don't put things up there that could melt because, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the weather here in Myrtle Beach is very extreme in the summertime. It's very hot. When we first moved down here back in 1998, we took all of our Christmas decorations and we shoved them all up into the attic. And when we pulled them out from the summertime, we pulled them out at Christmas time to set up the Christmas tree. And when we went to pull all the ornaments out, it came out as just one giant ball. Everything stuck together because they all melted because of the extreme heat. So you want to be real careful what you store in your attics as well. So no, we don't have basements. If you want one, you can, but it's going to be a pool. And really, it's not that bad because we're helping you get rid of all the junk you don't really need anymore. All right, guys, and the last and final thing that you might have a hard time dealing with if you're thinking about moving to Myrtle Beach, and something you may not want to give up, is your closeness to friends and family. You're used to where you live now. You have all your friends, you have all your family nearby, and it can be a major change making the move to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm going to be brutally honest. When I moved here in 1998, I graduated high school on a Friday. We had a graduation party on Saturday, and Sunday I was in the car on the way to Myrtle Beach. My family had already had our home here settled and set up. I just stayed with grandparents in Pennsylvania so that I didn't have to move in my senior year for high school. But when I made it to Myrtle Beach, it was one of the hardest things for me to transition. Back then, we didn't really have cell phones. Texting and social media didn't exist yet. So the only way I could communicate with everyone that I knew from childhood on up at my school was when I could get on the phone and talk to them on long distance calling. But if you remember back in the day, the only time you could do those long distance calls was either after 9 p.m. at night or on the weekends. And well, my parents didn't want me staying up real late at night, so I lost a lot of friends. When you move down here, you might be 10, 12, 14 hours from friends and family. But here's the other part to this. When people realize you've moved to a vacation destination like Myrtle Beach, you're going to see that those friends and family are going to come and visit. They're going to want to come. They're going to check out the area. And many times they'll end up following you down here to South Carolina not too long after you're here. For us, we moved here in 1998, and it was in 1999 my grandparents decided it was time for us to move as well, and they came right behind. We went back to Pennsylvania, loaded up their home, put it in a moving truck, and they came down and moved here. And both of us hardly ever visited the Northeast anymore. Instead, our friends, our family, they all planned annual trips to come down to the beach, hang out with us. I remember our first year here in our house. For Christmas that year, we had 21 people at our house over a 17-day period because everyone had vacation time saved up and they came down. They wanted to get out of the bitter cold of the Northeast, enjoy the beautiful weather of the South, all of the things to do few are still open. Locals at that time get to go enjoy all the local specials and all of the events and activities at discounted rates. We can get into all the good restaurants along the beach that are usually filled with tourists and enjoy everything Myrtle Beach has to offer. So yes, you might be 300, 400 miles away from friends and family, but you're going to have them coming to visit very often. The other thing, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, Southern hospitality takes place here. When you move to the area, you have to realize most people that live here are not local natives of Horry or Georgetown County. They too have moved here from another place in the country. I would say probably about 80 to 90% of the people that I help move to Myrtle Beach are someone who has never lived in Horry or Georgetown County before. Probably 70% of them have never even lived in South Carolina before. So most people that are coming here are coming from out of state, just like you are thinking about doing right now. They have decided these items that I've talked about that you're going to have to give up, they're willing to sacrifice that for the beautiful blue skies that we have here in Myrtle Beach. 300 days of sunshine, the 65 miles of beach along the coast, the hundreds of golf courses, the thousands of restaurants in the area, and the things to do that just is a mile-long list. That's why they've decided to move to Myrtle Beach. And so when they get here, they're looking for the same thing you are and looking to make those connections as well. So making new friends, making new connections with families and people in the area is not going to be as difficult as you may think. So before you go and make that decision, be honest, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and let them know you're thinking of moving. Sometimes you'll find they've been thinking about it as well, and they're going to follow right along with you to the area. If not, you can always tell them your house is open and welcome for them to come and visit, and they're going to come and do it. But just know you're going to be able to make friends here. You're going to be able to make new connections real quick. There's plenty of ways to do that. You can go play pickleball. You can go to the golf clubs. There's several churches throughout the area that you can go and make connections with new people. So making new connections, finding new friends, it's not going to be as difficult as you may think. All right, guys. So in closing, here's the thing. It's not a matter of what you're going to have to give up or trade off to move to the area. But instead, what are you going to gain living here in Myrtle Beach? It's pretty simple. As I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, you're going to gain 65 miles of coastline. You're going to gain 300 days of sunshine throughout the year. You're going to gain mild winters, beautiful springs and falls, hot summers where you can go to the beach and use the pools, and tons of things to do, restaurants to go to, a lower cost of living, and just an easier beach life, as we like to call it here in Myrtle Beach. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, get the bell on. And if you guys are thinking about making a move to the area and there's other things you want to discuss, go down below here, click on jeremyblanton.com and book a call with me, and we can discuss your move to the area. I've been helping people move to the area now for over 25 years, and I'd love to help you make the move to Myrtle Beach as well. Anyway, catch y'all soon in the next one. And as always, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, get the bell on, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.